In that moment, the universe fell silent. Under the Bodhi tree, Siddhartha Gautama opened his eyes and penetrated the essence of existence. The intricate web of causes and effects across countless worlds unfolds clearly before him, like a brilliant galaxy of stars in the night sky. At the moment of his enlightenment, the Buddha realized the profound truth of the universe, the law of karma and samsara, the supreme principle that governs all existence. Every word and action of every sentient being, no matter how small, is eternally recorded in the fabric of destiny, and not even the slightest trace can escape this great net of cause and effect. Ancient Buddhist scriptures record that even highly accomplished monks and virtuous masters who have attained supernatural powers cannot escape the karmic consequences of three types of actions. This warning has deeply shaken countless practitioners. What kind of behavior is so powerful that it pulls the string of karma with such force, making even those with extraordinary spiritual abilities unable to escape? The answer to this riddle is hidden within a seldom-known dialogue from the time of the Buddha, amidst the Hyena community, where morning light appears and the birds sing among the fragrant flowers. This is the sacred site where the Buddha transmitted the Dharma, where countless seekers gather to listen to the teachings of wisdom. A young monk named Acharya was treading on the morning dew, hastening toward the Scripture Society, his face glowing with an unmistakable joy and pride. Ajatasattu was born into a wealthy family, possessing exceptional intelligence. After only a few years of practice, he attained numerous supernatural powers, including the ability to fly through the air, foresee the future, and even understand the thoughts of others. These supernatural abilities made him complacent, believing that he had transcended the realm of ordinary beings and was standing at the threshold of liberation. On this day, Ajatasattu decided to ask the Buddha a question he considered crucial. He wanted to ascertain whether he had already attained the state of liberation. Ajuta came to the Kyan Sutra Society and found Sakyamuni Buddha preaching among a group of bhikkhus. After the Buddha finished expounding the day's Dharma, Ananda approached with hands joined in reverence, saluted, and then directly addressed the matter. World-honored one, since I began my practice, I have attained many supernatural powers. I can fly through the air, foresee the future, and understand the minds of others. Does this mean that I have already attained liberation? The Buddha looked at the young bhikkhu and smiled, answering, Achyuta, supernatural powers do not equate to liberation. No matter how great one's supernatural abilities are, they cannot overcome the force of karma. After hearing this, Anuruddha showed a look of doubt, clearly dissatisfied with the answer. Bhagwan, I am now able to foresee the future and dispel all disasters. What karmic consequences could still bind me? The Buddha's gaze deepened. As he looked at Ajata, he saw not only his present, but also his past and possible future. The Buddha said, Since you have this doubt, I will tell you a story. The Buddha's voice was calm and powerful, and all the monks of the sevenfold assembly fell silent, ready to listen to the story. Long ago, there was a practitioner named Tapitha, who, much like you, possessed extraordinary innate qualities and diligently practiced, quickly attaining the 5 supernatural powers. He is capable of flying in the air, seeing through walls, understanding others' minds, foreseeing the future, and manifesting countless transformations. These supernatural powers made Tirthadatta extremely proud. He thought to himself, Now I am omnipotent. There is nothing in heaven or on earth that can bind me anymore. The Buddha's teachings caused Ananda to reflect on his own mindset, and he began to feel a trace of unease. Thus, Devdatta started to act according to his own will. Seeing others possess good things, he uses supernatural powers to steal them. When others offend him, he uses supernatural powers to take revenge. He even uses supernatural powers to deceive people into offering alms, making them believe he is an enlightened high monk. One day, Devdatta used his supernatural powers to see that a wealthy merchant was returning from afar with a great amount of gold and silver treasures. Filled with greed, he wished to seize them for himself. He manifested his supernatural powers, transforming into an old man who blocked the mountain path that the wealthy merchant must pass. When the merchant arrived, he saw the old man lying on the ground, suffering deeply. This wealthy merchant was kind-hearted by nature. Seeing the elderly man in pain, he immediately stepped forward to check on him. Devdatta, seeing his scheme succeed, took advantage of the opportunity to use a deceptive illusion, causing the merchant's attendants to fall into a deep sleep. He was about to seize the wealth when he suddenly realized that his supernatural powers had completely failed. Upon hearing this, Ajiva's expression changed. He had never imagined that supernatural powers could fail. Just as Devdatta was panic-stricken, a golden light flashed, and a majestic celestial deity appeared. The deity said, "Devdatta, you have misused your supernatural powers for evil and have violated the heavenly laws." Devdatta immediately panicked. He knelt on the ground, begging for mercy, beseeching the celestial beings for forgiveness, saying, "I know I was wrong." The deva responded, "Cause and effect are inseparable, like a shadow following form. If you harm others using supernatural powers, you must endure tenfold the suffering. This is the natural law of heaven, which no one can alter." Since then, Tiberdharma not only lost all his supernatural powers, but also had to endure endless karmic retribution. He lived every day in fear and suffering until he finally fell into hell. After telling this story, the Buddha looked at Ananda and asked, "Do you know why Devdatta ended up in such a fate?" Ananda pondered for a moment and answered, "Is it because he abused supernatural powers for evil?" The Buddha nodded and said, "That is only the surface reason." The story of Devdatta is widely known in the Buddhist community, but few are aware of the events that occurred before his descent into hell. The monks within the Kyo society perked up their ears, eager to hear this little-known episode. Ajatasattu was even more focused. He realized that the Buddha was about to reveal an important truth concerning the fate of his practice. The Buddha continued, stating that after Devdatta lost his supernatural powers, his heart was filled with remorse and resentment. He came to a remote mountain and practiced austerely every day, hoping to regain his supernatural powers. Kneeling before the Buddha's statue, he vowed, "If I can regain my spiritual abilities, I will use them to benefit all sentient beings and never commit evil deeds again." A year passed, and Devdatta's sincerity moved the celestial beings. One night, a celestial deity appeared to him in a dream and said, "I have seen your sincerity. However, supernatural powers are a double-edged sword for you. Can you guarantee that this time you will not be corrupted by the power?" Tiberdato answered in a dream, "I have suffered enough. I will never make the same mistake again." The celestial being sighed and said, "Let me test you. Tomorrow, a caravan carrying a great wealth of gold and silver will pass through here. If you can resist the temptation and not covet their treasures, I will restore your divine powers." The next day, the caravan indeed arrived. Tiberdad hid in the shadows, watching. Seeing the sparkling gold, silver, and jewels, his heart began to stir with desire once again. He told himself that taking just a little bit should be all right. After all, once I regain my supernatural powers, I can do more good deeds to make up for it. At the very moment he had this thought, the voice of a deity echoed in his ear, "Devdatta, oh Devdatta, you still have not seen through it. Supernatural powers are not tools to satisfy personal desires, but supportive conditions on the path of practice. If you cannot even resist this small temptation, how can you ensure that you will not repeat the same mistakes?" Ajatasattu, upon hearing this, could not help but break out in a cold sweat. Every word from the Buddha seemed to pierce directly into his heart. Only then did he realize that there were so many profound meanings behind supernatural powers and how dangerous his long-standing pride and vanity truly were. The Buddha looked at Ananda's reaction and nodded with satisfaction. Although supernatural powers are formidable, the law of cause and effect is even more powerful. Even if you possess extraordinary abilities, There are 3 things you must absolutely never do. Ajatashatru hurriedly asked for instruction, requesting the Blessed One to reveal what exactly are the 3 matters. The Buddha's gaze was as sharp as lightning, instructing Ajatashatru. For thousands of years, countless enlightened monks have been exploring a profound mystery. Why do some individuals possess great supernatural powers, yet ultimately fall into hell? Why do some people possess boundless spiritual power, yet still cannot avoid receiving negative karmic retribution? All of this is related to the 3 great taboos. Today, I will reveal this profound secret. At that moment, the skies suddenly roared with thunder, and a bolt of lightning streaked across the heavens, illuminating the entire Wonderland realm. Ajatasattu felt a chill throughout his body. He clearly saw that the Buddha's countenance had become exceptionally solemn, as majestic and awe-inspiring as the thunder god in the heavens. What kind of taboo could possibly cause the heavens and the earth themselves to change color? O Shakyamuni, Ajata tremulously asked, and within the mirror of karmic connections, there was complete silence, as not even a crow or sparrow was heard. All the bhikkhus held their breath, awaiting the Buddha to unveil this ancient enigma capable of overturning the entire realm of practice. The Buddha's path begins with not deceiving the faith of sentient beings. The faith that sentient beings have in the 3 jewels is more precious than anything else, like a bright lamp illuminating the path forward in darkness. If one uses false supernatural powers and skills to deceive this faith, it extinguishes the lamp of sentient beings' hearts, which is the greatest offense. Just as a river can both carry a boat and overturn it, faith can help sentient beings attain liberation. But if one deceives sentient beings' faith, it will cause them to doubt the Dharma, leading countless individuals astray. Such karmic retribution is the most severe. Ajatasattu recalled how he had several times displayed supernatural powers before the villagers, leading them to believe he had attained enlightenment, and his heart was suddenly shaken with shame. Secondly, one must not use supernatural powers to harm living beings. Such powers are meant to be tools to help others, like refreshing nectar meant to nourish thirsty hearts, or like a bright lamp meant to illuminate travelers lost on their path. If one uses it to harm others, it contradicts the true purpose of cultivation. A person who uses supernatural powers to harm others is like one who wounds themselves with a treasured sword. Ultimately, it is one's self who gets hurt. Every bit of pain inflicted on others will reflect back into one's own heart like a mirror, tormenting one's self 100-fold, even 1,000-fold. The words of the Buddha were like a warning bell, reminding Ananda of the times he had used supernatural powers to mock those who had wronged him, causing his heart to be even more unsettled. Thirdly, supernatural powers should not be used to gain personal profit. Such powers are byproducts of practice, like wildflowers by the roadside, beautiful but not the destination. They are not tools to satisfy selfish desires, but flowers that naturally bloom when walking the right path. If one uses supernatural powers to steal or commit fraud, the karmic consequences are 100 times more severe than those of ordinary people committing crimes. Because you knowingly violate the principle of cause and effect is the most foolish behavior, akin to deliberately jumping off a cliff despite being aware of the danger. The Buddha continued to explain that these 3 prohibitions, though seemingly simple, actually embody the principles of heaven and earth. In the past, there was a venerable and virtuous monk named Shanming, who was proficient in the 5 spiritual eyes and 6 superknowledges, enabling him to perceive the past and future. Once, using his divine eye, he discovered that a certain household would suffer a catastrophic misfortune 3 days later, endangering the lives of all 9 family members. Out of compassion, he intended to use his supernatural powers to avert the disaster. However, just as he was about to act, he heard a warning from Brahma in the sky, indicating that the calamity of this household was the result of karmic causes from past lives. If supernatural powers are forcibly used to resolve issues, Not only will they lose the opportunity to eliminate their karma, but their sins will accumulate even more deeply, resulting in greater suffering in the next life. Shan Ming instantly awakened to the profound meaning of cause and effect. Instead of using divine powers to directly save the person, he went to the beggar's family gate to collect alms. Taking advantage of the opportunity of alms-seeking, he taught the household to practice kindness and accumulate virtue, to recite sutras, and to pay respects to the Buddha. 3 days later, the disaster indeed arrived, but due to the wholesome causes they had planted, the calamity was mild, and the entire family remained safe and unharmed. This is the true application of wisdom's supernatural powers, not directly intervening in cause and effect, but teaching sentient beings how to plant new wholesome causes. There was also a practitioner named Huiguan, who had the ability to foresee events before they happened. One day, he foresaw that he would encounter a calamity 7 days later, facing a threat to his life. He thought to himself, "With the divine powers I possess, I am certain to escape this calamity." Then he manifested his supernatural powers, intending to alter the future. He retreated into the deep mountains, changed his appearance, and even used supernatural powers to render himself invisible. However, no matter how he employed his supernatural powers, the impending calamity still arrived as scheduled. On the 7th evening, a huge boulder suddenly rolled down from the mountaintop, striking exactly where he was concealed. At a critical moment, an ordinary passing monk risked everything to rescue him. Although Huiguan suffered a serious injury, he turned misfortune into fortune. During his recovery, he finally understood a profound truth. No matter how great one's supernatural powers are, they cannot surpass the law of cause and effect. True liberation is not attained by evading karma through supernatural powers, but by understanding karma through wisdom and transforming karma through compassion. Achyuta listened with deep concentration. The truths revealed by these stories illuminated the path of his practice like a lamp shining in the darkness. The Buddha then said, "Therefore, do not think that having supernatural powers allows one to act arbitrarily. The cycle of the heavenly realms operates according to cause and effect without fail. Each person's circumstances are the result of causes sown in past lives and the effects manifested in the present life. To attain true liberation, one must offer precepts as a gift and wield wisdom as a blade to sever the roots of greed, hatred, and delusion." After hearing this, Achyuta broke out in a cold sweat all over. Only then did he realize how dangerous his previous thoughts had been and how far he still was from true liberation. The Buddha looked at Ananda's reaction and nodded inwardly. "Ananda, I will now teach you a deeper truth. In this world, there are 4 types of people. One type possesses both supernatural powers and wisdom. They use their supernatural powers to benefit sentient beings, like rain, and do nourishing all living things. There are those who possess supernatural powers but lack wisdom. They use their abilities to harm others and themselves, like flames that consume themselves. Some people lack supernatural powers but possess wisdom. Although they are ordinary, their inner enlightenment shines like a bright lamp illuminating themselves. Some people possess neither supernatural powers nor wisdom. They fumble in darkness, like blind individuals walking at night. The Buddha asked, "Tell me, among these 4 kinds of people, who is the most precious?" Achyuta thought for a moment and replied, "It is the first type of person, endowed with both supernatural powers and wisdom, capable of extensively saving sentient beings." The Buddha shook his head and said the most precious are the 3rd type of people, because although they lack supernatural powers, they possess wisdom to understand cause and effect, and know how to observe precepts and practice diligently. They do not rely on external forces, but attain liberation through inner awakening. Although the first type of person possesses supernatural powers and wisdom, they inevitably have attachments. As long as there is attachment, there is the possibility of delusion. True cultivation does not lie in possessing supernatural powers, but in being able to let go of attachments and understand causality. A truly enlightened person would rather be without supernatural powers than be influenced or swayed by them, for they understand that such powers are like the moon reflected in water or flowers seen in a mirror, illusory and unreal. At this moment, Venerable Ananda rose from his seat and said, "I recall a true story. Once upon a time, there was a practitioner named F.A. Kong who possessed great supernatural powers. Once, he used his supernatural powers to foresee that he would die in 7 days, which made him very fearful. He sought medical advice everywhere and finally found a great virtuous master. The venerable master, named Wisdom, said to emptiness of Dharma, "What matters most now is not fleeing from death, but understanding the true nature of birth and death. Death is merely an illusion. True life is neither born nor does it perish." Feikong, upon hearing this, was deeply enlightened and let go of his attachment to supernatural powers, focusing wholeheartedly on contemplating the truth of life and death. He began to observe the nature of life, observing his breath and observing his thoughts. Gradually, he realized that life is merely the arising and ceasing of thoughts, while his true nature is unborn and undying. 7 days passed, and not only did he not die, but he also attained enlightenment. He realized the inherent emptiness of birth and death, and no longer feared death. Later, he used his supernatural powers to help others, but no longer clung to the powers themselves. Upon hearing this, the Buddha nodded approvingly. Ananda said, "It is well said. Supernatural powers are like a knife. When used skillfully, they can save people, but when used improperly, they can cause harm. A true practitioner is not deceived by supernatural powers, but uses them to perceive the underlying truth." The Buddha looked at Anuruddha and said earnestly, "Anuruddha, you must understand, supernatural powers are merely tools, not the ultimate goal. Those who seek liberation should be like archers, keeping their eyes fixed on the target, not on the bow. No matter how excellent the bow and arrow are, if they fail to hit the target, they are useless. Similarly, no matter how great the supernatural powers are, if they cannot help you attain liberation, they are merely ornaments of the Huayan practice of giving." Once, I encountered an ascetic by the banks of the Ganges who had attained the supernatural power to walk on water through austere practices. He proudly asked me, "After years of practice, I can finally walk on water. How do you find this supernatural power?" I asked him, "How much is this supernatural power worth?" He was stunned and didn't know how to respond. I asked again, "How many copper coins does the ferry cost? You have practiced cultivation for so many years. Is it worth just a few copper coins?" The ascetic immediately understood that supernatural powers are not the goal. Liberation is the true goal. He abandoned attachment to supernatural powers and began to pursue true wisdom. These words deeply inspired everyone present. Achyuta was deeply moved and knelt before the Buddha, saying, "World-honored one, I understand now. From this day forward, I shall let go of my attachment to supernatural powers, diligently uphold the precepts, cultivate my practice, and pursue true wisdom and liberation." The Buddha said with joy, "Well done, well done. Your awakening is more precious than acquiring any supernatural powers. Remember, as humans act, the heavens observe. No matter how great one's abilities may be, one must always keep in mind the law of cause and effect and refrain from harming sentient beings. True cultivation is not the pursuit of supernatural powers, but the elimination of afflictions, the increase of wisdom, and ultimately attaining liberation." Since then, Ananda no longer flaunted supernatural powers, but devoted himself to strict discipline and practice, immersing deeply in the study of the Dharma. He regards supernatural powers as supportive conditions on the path of practice, rather than as the ultimate goal. He uses supernatural powers to help sentient beings, but does not cling to the powers themselves. Ultimately, he eradicated all afflictions and attained the fruit of an arahant, realizing true liberation. This story is widely circulated in the Buddhist community as a reminder for future generations not to be deceived by supernatural powers, but to always remember karma and pursue true wisdom and liberation. In this world full of temptation and confusion, each of us faces similar choices. The abilities we possess, whether intelligence, wealth, or power, are like supernatural faculties. They can be used to benefit others or to harm them. Each of our choices weaves the intricate web of our own destiny. The law of cause and effect is like the gravity of the universe, and no one can escape it. Doing good brings blessings. Committing evil leads to disaster. This truth remains unchanged throughout the ages. When we stand at the crossroads of life, hesitating about which path to take, we might reflect on the Buddha's teachings, to uphold the trust of all beings without deception, to harm no life, and to act not for selfish gain. These three principles are not only guidelines for practitioners, but also the fundamental foundation for everyone's sense of stability and purpose in life. No matter what you believe in, no matter where you are, remember that in this causal universe, no force can allow us to escape the consequences of our own actions. Only by resonating with wisdom and cause and effect, and practicing kindness with compassion, can one navigate the long river of life, braving the waves, and ultimately reach the shore of tranquility and peace.